The clay tablets weren't supposed to exist. Not these ones. Not with these symbols. Not with this knowledge. For centuries, they remained hidden beneath the shifting sands of Mesopotamia, guarding secrets that defied conventional history. When they emerged in fragments during the excavations of the 1920s, scholars dismissed their contents as mythological fantasies, stories of gods who descended from the heavens, who measured time in increments of thousands of years, who possessed knowledge of the stars no ancient civilization should have known. They spoke of the Anunnaki, those who from heaven to earth came, the first kings of earth who supposedly ruled for 241,000 years. But something changed in 2019. Deep in the archives of the British Museum, a researcher discovered untranslated fragments that contained something impossible. Astronomical calculations tracking celestial bodies unknown to the ancient world, bodies only discovered by modern telescopes. How could the ancient Sumerians know about celestial objects invisible to the naked eye? Objects that orbit beyond Pluto? What if the oldest tablets weren't recording myths, but documenting an encounter with beings who possessed knowledge beyond human comprehension? What if history's greatest illusion was the belief that we were alone in our creation? The ancient land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization, holds the oldest written records of human history. Here, around 4000 BCE, the Sumerians developed writing, mathematics, astronomy, and the first known creation stories that would echo through millennia into modern religions. When archaeologists first excavated the royal libraries of Nineveh in the 1850s, they discovered over 30,000 clay tablets. Among them was the Enuma Elish, the Babylonian creation epic, and texts describing the Anunnaki, divine beings who came from the heavens to create and guide humanity. Conventional history dismissed these as mythological fantasies, primitive attempts to explain natural phenomena through gods and monsters. But the tablets told a different story. They described the Anunnaki not as abstract deities, but as physical beings who established outposts on Earth, who created humans through a process the tablets called mixing clay with divine blood. The ancient scribes recorded their words with precise measurements, the mathematical constant p accurate to several decimal places, descriptions of our solar system with all planets in correct order, and a 25,120-year astronomical cycle that modern science only confirmed in the 20th century. When the researcher first touched the newfound tablet fragments in the museum's climate-controlled basement, something peculiar happened. The cuneiform writing seemed to shift under the light, revealing previously unnoticed patterns. The sensation was unsettling, as if the ancient words were watching, waiting to be understood after thousands of years of silence. The translations revealed a hidden narrative buried within known texts, references to the gateway, a physical location where heaven and earth once connected, where knowledge flowed between worlds. For centuries, scholars translated the Sumerian word Dur-en-Ki, HETP, Dur-en-Ki, simply as the bond between heaven and earth, a poetic, religious metaphor. What if it wasn't metaphorical at all? What if it described something tangible that had been deliberately hidden from human memory? And why would someone want such knowledge forgotten? In 2021, a team of archaeologists discovered something inexplicable beneath the ruins of Eridu, believed to be the oldest city in Mesopotamia. What began as a routine excavation transformed into something that threatened to unravel the accepted narrative of human origins. 16 feet below the ancient temple foundations lay a sealed chamber. Carbon dating placed the surrounding materials at approximately 12,000 years old, thousands of years before Sumer was supposed to exist. Inside, they found a black stone tablet unlike any other, its surface bearing neither cuneiform nor any recognized ancient script. Instead, it contained geometric patterns arranged in concentric circles, with 12 radiating lines connecting to symbols that resembled star systems. When subjected to spectroscopic analysis, the stone revealed traces of elements not native to Earth, including isotopes of rhodium and ruthenium in configurations not found in our planet's natural geology. The tablet's composition defied categorization, showing crystalline structures that shouldn't form under terrestrial conditions. More disturbing was what happened when researchers applied electrical current to the artifact. The geometric patterns illuminated from within, revealing additional layers of information invisible to the naked eye. Star charts depicting celestial arrangements from approximately 430,000 years ago, according to astronomical regression models. This timeline aligned with something written in the Sumerian king list, the beginning of the reign of the Anunnaki on Earth. When kingship was lowered from heaven, kingship was in Eridu. The implications were staggering. Either prehistoric humans possessed astronomical knowledge and advanced material science that wouldn't be rediscovered until the 21st century, or someone else had placed this artifact beneath the oldest city in Mesopotamia, thousands of years before conventional history says civilization began. The discovery coincided with another finding halfway across the world. In the archives of the Vatican Library, a researcher uncovered Sumerian translations commissioned by Jesuit scholars in the 1600s, translations that had been subsequently suppressed and hidden within mislabeled medieval texts. These contained passages from the original epic of creation that never appeared in publicly available versions. The hidden text described the Anunnaki not as gods, but as beings who arrived from a world called Nibiru, described as the planet of crossing, that followed an elongated 3,600-year orbit around our sun. They came to Earth seeking resources, specifically gold, which they needed to repair their world's failing atmosphere. According to these texts, the Anunnaki first arrived 445,000 years ago. Finding Earth's gravity and atmosphere compatible but the labor exhausting, their leader, Enki, proposed creating a worker species by genetically modifying primitive Earth hominids with their own DNA. The recovered passages contained detailed descriptions of this process, using terminology that eerily paralleled modern genetic engineering concepts, binding essence to essence, cutting the knot of life, and reshaping the image. Most remarkable was a passage that described the manipulation of what the Sumerians called me, often translated as divine powers, but in this context clearly referring to something that could be physically handled, studied, and altered to change the fundamental nature of living beings. Modern geneticists who reviewed translations of these passages were stunned by the parallels to contemporary understanding of DNA manipulation, noting that certain sequences described could be interpreted as early accounts of gene splicing. But the most troubling discovery came from the chamber beneath Eridu. As researchers continued to study the black stone, they found it contained embedded microscopic structures, crystalline patterns arranged in helical formations that, when mapped digitally, corresponded to specific genetic sequences, human genetic sequences. Specifically, the non-coding sections of DNA that geneticists call junk DNA, the 98% of human genetic material whose purpose remains largely mysterious to modern science. When these sequences were isolated and analyzed, they revealed patterns too ordered, too purposeful to have evolved naturally. Embedded within our genetic code were mathematical constants, the same constants found in Sumerian mathematics, the golden ratio, the value of pi and astronomical cycles measured to several decimal places. Why would junk DNA contain mathematical information? And why would that information match precisely the mathematical systems of Earth's oldest civilization? The research team worked in growing isolation. Major academic institutions distanced themselves from the findings. Funding was mysteriously cut. Published papers were retracted from scientific journals without explanation. Then the artifacts disappeared. The black stone tablet vanished from its secured laboratory. The untranslated texts were removed from the Vatican archives during an inventory assessment. Researchers reported break-ins, missing data, corrupted backups. Someone wanted this information buried again, but fragments remained. Copies of translations, preliminary research notes, photographs. Enough to piece together a narrative that suggested something unthinkable, that humanity's origins might not be what we had been led to believe, that our creators might not be who our religions told us they were. What would it mean if the ancient Mesopotamian texts were not myths but historical accounts? If the Anunnaki were not gods but advanced beings who engineered humanity for their own purposes? And if they created us, did they ever truly leave? Or have they been watching from the shadows, guiding our development, waiting for us to reach some predetermined threshold? The answer might lie in the most forbidden knowledge of all, hidden in plain sight within our own DNA, waiting to be awakened. The disappearance of the artifacts sparked a silent war within academic circles. Those who had witnessed the evidence were divided. Some insisted on pursuing the truth regardless of consequences, while others retreated into the safety of conventional theories, suddenly finding methodological flaws in their previous research. Mainstream archaeology journals published scathing critiques of the Sumerian intervention hypothesis, dismissing it as pseudoscience. Yet these critiques carefully avoided addressing the specific evidence: the isotope analysis of the Black Stone, the genetic sequences embedded in non-coding DNA, the suppressed translations from the Vatican archives. Instead, careers were quietly destroyed. Tenured professors found themselves reassigned to administrative duties. Research assistants were denied promised positions. Grant applications were rejected without review, but the knowledge refused to remain buried. In 2022, a geological survey in southern Iraq, ostensibly searching for groundwater sources, deployed ground-penetrating radar in a region 70 miles southeast of the ruins of Eridu. What they discovered defied explanation: a perfectly geometric structure buried more than 150 feet beneath the desert surface. Initial scans revealed what appeared to be a massive complex, with walls containing metal alloys, similar to those found in the Black Stone tablet. The Iraqi government abruptly classified the findings and denied further excavation permits. Satellite imagery later showed military installations being constructed at the site, with equipment bearing the logos of private aerospace contractors. Meanwhile, geneticists working independently across 3 continents began finding anomalies in the human genome that pointed to deliberate engineering. The FOXP2 gene, responsible for human speech capability, showed signs of artificial selection that accelerated approximately 200,000 years ago, precisely when Homo sapiens suddenly appeared in the fossil record with significantly larger brains than their predecessors. More tellingly, certain sequences in human DNA appeared to contain embedded mathematical patterns, the same patterns described in Sumerian mathematical texts concerning the orbit of Nibiru. When these sequences were plotted three-dimensionally, they formed structures resembling the concentric circles on the vanished Black Stone. Those pursuing the research operated in shadows, sharing encrypted findings through secure channels, afraid of having their work confiscated. They spoke of unexplained surveillance, of strangers following them, of break-ins where nothing was stolen except research notes. Some found unexpected allies. Religious scholars, particularly those specializing in apocryphal texts, began noticing parallels between the Sumerian accounts and stories excluded from canonical religious texts. The Book of Enoch, removed from most biblical canons, described watchers who came from the heavens and bred with human women, creating offspring of great knowledge and stature. The Nag Hammadi texts spoke of archons, beings who claimed to be creators, but were actually manipulators of humanity. These religious scholars faced their own crisis of faith. If the Anunnaki were real beings who genetically engineered humanity, what did that mean for religious belief? Were Adam and Eve actually the products of prehistoric genetic manipulation? Was the biblical god actually Enlil or Enki, Anunnaki leaders described in the Sumerian texts? The implications extended beyond religion into every aspect of human civilization. The inexplicable technological leaps throughout human history, the sudden emergence of Sumerian culture, the precision engineering of the Great Pyramid, the astronomical alignments of sites worldwide, began to look less like human achievements and more like guided development. And if that guidance had been happening throughout human history, was it still occurring? Researchers examining the statistical improbability of certain technological breakthroughs of the 20th century, transistors, integrated circuits, fiber optics, found their development curves defied normal innovation patterns. Technologies that should have taken centuries to develop emerged in decades, often from researchers who claimed solutions came to them in dreams or sudden inspirations. As the evidence mounted, so did resistance from established power structures. Major media organizations refused to cover the findings, regardless of their credibility. Social media algorithms mysteriously downranked related content. Scientific journals rejected papers without review. This systematic suppression itself became evidence. Why would institutions that supposedly valued knowledge work so hard to prevent investigation of these discoveries? What power did this narrative threaten? Some researchers proposed that the suppression wasn't about protecting scientific orthodoxy, but about maintaining social control. If humans discovered they were created as a slave species, engineered workers designed to mine gold for beings from another world. How would that affect the social order? What would happen to religions built around the idea of divine creation, with humanity as its pinnacle achievement? More disturbing was the possibility that the Anunnaki never left. The Sumerian texts described factional conflicts among these beings, primarily between Enlil, who viewed humans as dangerous if given too much knowledge, and Enki, who secretly elevated human consciousness beyond their intended design. This conflict was eerily echoed in the present day between forces suppressing the evidence and those fighting to reveal it. Ancient texts described the Anunnaki as extremely long-lived, but not immortal. If their lifespan stretched thousands of years, as the tablets claimed, those who remained on Earth after the main contingent departed might still be alive, still manipulating human affairs from the shadows. This possibility gained unexpected support from historical analysis of powerful bloodlines and banking dynasties, revealing that certain families had maintained continuous influence over human affairs for centuries, guiding empires and economies through unseen hands. The researchers pursuing these connections faced increasing personal danger. Several died in accidents that, while appearing random, contained statistical anomalies too precise to ignore. Others simply disappeared. The message was clear. There were boundaries to knowledge that carried deadly consequences when crossed. Those who remained began noticing another pattern. The same mathematical sequences found in human junk DNA and on the black stone tablet appeared in crop formations reported worldwide. Complex geometric patterns that appeared overnight in fields, often near ancient sacred sites. Were these messages? Activations? Warnings? The researchers who had directly handled the black stone reported recurring dreams of a specific location, a remote region in the mountains of southeastern Turkey, near Göbekli Tepe, the mysterious 12,000-year-old temple complex that had already upended archaeological timelines. The dreams contained a recurring message: the gateway still stands. What if Göbekli Tepe, deliberately buried by its creators 10,000 years ago, wasn't just the world's oldest temple, but something more significant? What if it marked the location of Dur-Enki, http Dur-Enki, the original gateway where heaven and earth connected? And what would happen if that gateway were to open again? In early 2023, an unexpected breakthrough came from an overlooked source: linguistic analysis of Sumerian cuneiform combined with advanced machine learning algorithms. A research team at the University of Chicago fed the complete corpus of translated Sumerian texts into an AI system designed to detect patterns invisible to human perception. What emerged was astonishing: a secondary layer of meaning embedded within the primary texts, visible only when specific syllables were extracted according to mathematical intervals described in the tablets themselves. This hidden language, what linguists termed a metasyntactic cipher, revealed an entirely new narrative about the Anunnaki and their activities on Earth. The decoded texts spoke of the Anunnaki not merely mining gold, but establishing a vast network of facilities across the planet. Facilities for biological research, for astronomical observation, for long-distance communication. They described technologies that manipulated energies at the quantum level, creating pathways between stars that defied conventional physics. Most significantly, they detailed the creation of humanity in clinical, procedural language, describing not one but multiple phases of genetic modification spanning thousands of years. The first humans were primitive workers with limited intelligence and lifespans. But something changed in the Anunnaki plans. Conflicts arose between factions: those who saw humans as mere tools and those who envisioned them as potential inheritors of Anunnaki knowledge. The leader of this second faction, Enki, called the Lord of Earth and Master of the Deep Waters, secretly enhanced the human genome beyond what was authorized. According to the decoded texts, he embedded within human DNA dormant capabilities, genetic time capsules designed to activate in specific epochs as humanity developed, triggering evolutionary leaps in consciousness and ability. The texts indicated that these genetic triggers were tied to astronomical alignments, particularly to the positions of Earth, Nibiru, and the galactic center. As certain alignments occurred, subtle energetic changes would activate dormant sequences in the human genome, advancing human consciousness and capabilities in quantum leaps, rather than through gradual evolution. This explained the mysterious cognitive revolution that occurred approximately 70,000 years ago, when human behavior suddenly exhibited signs of symbolic thinking, complex language, and technological innovation without any apparent biological change in the brain. It wasn't random mutation, it was an activated program. The same pattern appeared again with the abrupt emergence of agriculture and settled civilization around 12,000 years ago, precisely when Göbekli Tepe was constructed, and exactly when the Earth moved into a new astronomical alignment with the galactic center. These revelations were simultaneously validated by geneticists who had been analyzing specific non-coding DNA sequences flagged in the earlier research. They discovered what they termed syntax patterns, regulatory elements that behaved like programming language, controlling when and how certain genes expressed themselves. These patterns contained nested structures so complex they couldn't have evolved naturally, showing signs of deliberate design comparable to modern algorithmic programming. What truly shocked the research community was when these genetic algorithms were extracted and run through computational simulations. They revealed a developmental pathway for the human species extending thousands of years into the future, a blueprint for what humanity was designed to become. We weren't finished evolving, we were in mid-transformation. According to both the genetic evidence and the decoded Sumerian texts, humanity was approaching another activation point, another leap in development triggered by astronomical alignment and timed genetic expressions. The next phase was scheduled to begin between 2023 and 2027. The suppression of this knowledge suddenly made strategic sense. Those in power, whether human elites or hidden Anunnaki, might not want humanity to know they were about to undergo a transformation beyond anyone's control. Meanwhile, a geological research team working near Göbekli Tepe made their own discovery. Using advanced ground-penetrating radar, they found what appeared to be a vast crystalline structure beneath the ancient site, a formation that couldn't possibly be natural. It extended more than a mile into the earth, with geometric properties that matched the patterns on the black stone tablet and the sequences in human DNA. When they directed specific frequencies at the structure, frequencies derived from the mathematical constants found in the genetic sequences, the crystalline formation responded. It began resonating, emitting electromagnetic pulses in rhythmic patterns that exactly matched the metasyntactic cipher found in the Sumerian texts. The site wasn't just a temple, it was a machine, a receiver, a transmitter, a gateway. Göbekli Tepe had been deliberately buried 10,000 years ago, not to destroy it but to protect it, to preserve it for future activation. Its construction had been dated to approximately 12,000 years ago, but carbon dating of material found beneath the lowest levels suggested the crystalline structure had existed for at least 200,000 years. The megalithic circles visible to archaeologists were merely the surface expression of something far more ancient and technologically advanced. As these discoveries converged, another mystery began unfolding in the skies. Astronomers tracked perturbations in the orbits of trans-Neptunian objects, evidence of a massive body moving through the outer solar system. The calculated orbit matched exactly what Sumerian texts described for Nibiru, a 3,600-year elongated elliptical orbit that brought it between Mars and Jupiter at its closest approach to the Sun. According to these calculations, Nibiru was approaching the inner solar system for the first time since the founding of the Sumerian civilization. The convergence was undeniable. Genetic activations, archaeological discoveries, astronomical alignments, all pointing to an imminent event, something the ancient texts had both predicted and feared. The Sumerian word asharu, translated variously as visitation, reckoning, or remembrance, appeared repeatedly in texts describing this convergence. Religious scholars noted the parallels to apocalyptic literature across multiple traditions, not as descriptions of the end of the world, but as revelations of hidden truth. The Greek word apocalypsis literally meant unveiling, the disclosure of something long concealed. What was about to be unveiled? The researchers at Göbekli Tepe continued experimenting with frequencies directed at the crystalline structure. On the spring equinox of 2023, they aligned their equipment with specific astronomical positions described in the Sumerian texts. What happened next defied rational explanation. The frequencies triggered a response that escalated beyond anything they had witnessed before. The entire crystalline structure began vibrating in harmony, generating an electromagnetic field so powerful it disabled all electronic equipment within a mile radius. Witnesses described seeing the air itself shimmer above the site, like heat waves but more geometric, forming patterns that resembled the concentric circles on the black stone tablet. Then something emerged from the center of Göbekli Tepe, not a physical object, but what witnesses described as a tear in reality. A vertical plane of scintillating energy, through which they could dimly perceive what appeared to be a vast chamber filled with technologies beyond human comprehension. For 7 minutes, the portal remained stable. Then it collapsed, leaving behind no physical evidence of its existence except for a perfectly circular area where the molecular structure of the stone had been altered at the quantum level, transformed into a crystalline lattice identical to that found in the black stone tablet. What had they witnessed? Was it the opening of Durin Kai HDP Durin? Was the gateway between heaven and earth described in the oldest Sumerian texts? Had they accidentally activated a technology left dormant for thousands of years? And if the gateway had opened once, even briefly, had something passed through it? In the days following the event, researchers at the site began experiencing identical dreams. Visions of a vast library containing records of Earth's history from before human civilization. The dreams contained a message repeated in the ancient Sumerian language but understood regardless of the dreamer's linguistic background. The scheduled return approaches. The children will remember their creation. The gateway awaits the creators. What awaited humanity on the other side of that gateway? Were we about to face our creators? And if the Anunnaki returned, would they find a species that had evolved according to their design, or one that had broken free of its programming and forged its own destiny? Perhaps most importantly, were we ready to learn the truth about our origins, even if that truth shattered everything we believed about ourselves? The scattered research teams working independently across the globe began, connecting through encrypted channels, sharing findings that converged on a revelation too profound to comprehend, yet too consistent to deny. The truth had been hidden in plain sight all along, encoded in ancient architecture, embedded in religious symbolism, whispered through esoteric traditions and locked within our very DNA. The Anunnaki weren't simply advanced beings who created humans through genetic engineering. Their technological achievements went far beyond manipulation of matter and genetics. According to the decoded texts and crystalline data structures, they had mastered something more fundamental: the nature of reality itself. In July 2024, researchers analyzing the quantum properties of the transformed stone at Göbekli Tepe made a discovery that shattered conventional physics. The crystalline structure wasn't merely resonating with certain frequencies, it was generating its own space-time field, a localized alteration of reality operating under different physical laws. Within this field, impossible things became possible. Information transferred instantaneously across any distance. Matter transformed without energy exchange. Consciousness itself appeared to function differently, with test subjects reporting expanded awareness and access to information they couldn't possibly know. The implications aligned with the most radical interpretation of the Sumerian texts, that the Anunnaki hadn't just come from another planet, but from another level of reality altogether. What the ancient text described as heaven wasn't the sky, but a dimensional state operating under different physical laws. And their greatest creation wasn't humanity, it was the reality we perceive. The oldest Sumerian creation text, previously mistranslated, didn't describe the creation of the physical world. It described the implementation of a perception framework, a consciousness filter that limited how human awareness could interact with the true nature of existence. In the original Sumerian, the text didn't say the gods created the heavens and earth, but rather, the lords established the boundaries of perception. This revelation cast ancient symbols in a new light. The Sumerian depiction of the Tree of Life wasn't a religious metaphor, but a technical diagram showing how consciousness filtered through multiple dimensional levels. The Egyptian Eye of Horus wasn't a mystical symbol, but a schematic for the human perceptual apparatus, showing how reality was processed through the brain. Even more shocking was the revelation about human history. The various ages and cycles described in ancient texts worldwide weren't merely cultural epics, but fundamental shifts in the perception framework itself, adjustments to how humans could experience reality. gradually expanded over thousands of years as humanity evolved toward some predetermined destination. We weren't just genetically engineered beings. We were consciousness housed within a carefully constructed illusion, an illusion that was scheduled for its next phase shift as Nibiru approached. The suppressed Vatican translations revealed that the Anunnaki had implemented this perception framework for a specific purpose. Humans in their natural state would have perceived too much of reality, overwhelming their developing consciousness. The limitations were training wheels, meant to be gradually removed as humanity matured. Each phase shift expanded human perception incrementally, from the animistic consciousness of prehistory to the rational materialism of the modern age. Each step was preparation for the next. Each civilization rose and fell according to its position in this developmental sequence. But there was something the Anunnaki hadn't anticipated. Within their creation, something unexpected had emerged, a capacity for self-determination that transcended their programming. Human consciousness had begun creating its own reality structures, its own perception frameworks. We had become creators within the creation. This explained the increasing instability in the perception framework over recent centuries, the acceleration of human development, the quantum physics revelations challenging objective reality, the growing collective awareness that something fundamental was shifting in human consciousness. We were outgrowing the illusion. The crystalline structure beneath Göbekli Tepe wasn't just a communication device. It was a node in the global network that maintained the perception framework. Similar structures had been discovered beneath other ancient sites worldwide: the Giza Plateau, Teotihuacan, Angkor Wat, Easter Island, all forming a geometric pattern across the Earth's surface that matched precisely the arrangements on the black stone tablet. This network was awakening, responding to both the approaching celestial alignment and humanity's expanding consciousness. The gateway at Göbekli Tepe was just the first to activate. According to the most recent translations, the return of the Anunnaki wasn't about beings physically arriving from another planet. It referred to the dissolution of the veil between dimensional states, the thinning of the perception framework that had separated heaven and earth for millennia. The gateway wasn't opening to let something in. It was opening to let humanity out of the limited perception framework that had defined human experience since our creation. We were about to see reality as it truly existed, unfettered by the perceptual limitations engineered into our consciousness. We were about to remember what we really were, and that awakening had already begun. Across the globe, people were experiencing spontaneous expansions of awareness, perceiving aspects of reality previously invisible, accessing information without conventional learning, developing abilities that defied materialist explanations. The genetic triggers embedded in our DNA were activating, just as the ancient texts had predicted. But the most profound question remained unanswered. Why? Why create humans at all? Why guide our development over hundreds of thousands of years? Why engineer this elaborate evolutionary process? The answer lay within the final chamber beneath Göbekli Tepe, a truth so profound that those who glimpsed it through the briefly opened gateway were forever changed by what they witnessed. In the aftermath of these revelations, a profound silence fell over those who understood their implications. The researchers who had pursued this forbidden knowledge found themselves transformed by it, standing at the threshold between what humanity had been and what it was becoming. How does one live with such awareness? How does one walk through the world knowing that reality itself is a constructed experience, a perception framework implemented by beings who shaped not just our bodies, but the very nature of our consciousness? Some found this knowledge liberating. If reality as we perceive it is limited by design, then those limitations can be transcended. The awakening wasn't an ending, but a beginning, the start of humanity's true journey into unfiltered existence. The Anunnaki hadn't imprisoned us within an illusion. They had protected developing consciousness from overwhelming complexity until we were ready to embrace it. Others found deeper meaning in ancient wisdom traditions that suddenly made literal sense. When mystics across cultures spoke of awakening, they weren't speaking metaphorically. They had glimpsed beyond the perception framework, experiencing reality as it actually exists, rather than how it was designed to appear. Enlightenment wasn't a spiritual abstraction, but a tangible shift in consciousness, one now happening on a global scale. The personal implications were equally profound. If each human carries within them the genetic heritage of the Anunnaki, if we are in essence their children, rather than merely their creation, then our potential extends far beyond the boundaries of conventional human experience. We are not merely discovering our creators, we are remembering our true nature. This remembrance explains the accelerating pace of human development over recent decades. The exponential expansion of technology, the dissolution of old paradigms, the emergence of new forms of consciousness, all were expressions of humanity outgrowing its perceptual cradle, reaching for something beyond the framework that had defined human experience for millennia. Yet shadows linger on the edge of this awakening. If the Anunnaki engineered humanity and reality itself, what was their purpose? Were we an experiment? A project? A refuge? Children to be nurtured or resources to be harvested when we reached maturity? The ancient texts offered contradictory answers. Some suggested the Anunnaki created humanity as part of their own evolutionary process, that we represent an aspect of their consciousness exploring existence through differentiated experience. Others implied more utilitarian motives, that human consciousness serves as a processing system for information the Anunnaki themselves cannot directly perceive. Perhaps most haunting is the possibility that we are their legacy, that the Anunnaki themselves faced extinction and created humanity as their successors, embedding their knowledge and consciousness within us to be gradually awakened when we were ready to receive it. This may explain the genetic triggers activated by specific astronomical alignments. Each activation expands human potential, releasing capabilities previously dormant within our DNA. Each expansion prepares us for the next phase of remembrance. We are not evolving towards some unknown future, but awakening to what has always been within us. As we stand at this threshold of transformation, questions of identity take on new dimensions. If our consciousness has been shaped by external design, what aspects of human experience are authentically our own? Where does Anunnaki programming end and human self-determination begin? Perhaps this is their greatest gift. Not the engineering of our biology or our reality, but the capacity for choice they embedded within us. Even within a designed perception framework, humans have consistently demonstrated the ability to imagine beyond its boundaries, to question the nature of existence, to seek truth regardless of comfortable illusions. That seeking, that restless curiosity, that hunger for understanding, may be the truest expression of what we are. Not merely creations fulfilling their programming, but conscious beings choosing their own relationship to existence. As the gateways continue to activate worldwide, as the perception framework gradually dissolves, as humanity begins to experience reality beyond its designed limitations, we face not an ending, but a graduation. Whatever the Anunnaki intended, we have become something perhaps even they could not fully anticipate, conscious agents of our own becoming. The ancient Sumerian term for humanity, Lulu, has been traditionally translated as the mixed ones, reflecting our hybrid genetic origins. But in the newly decoded texts, a fuller translation emerges. Those who embody potential. Perhaps that is our true legacy, not merely what we were created to be, but what we might choose to become. As we approach the prophesied alignments of 2025 to 2027, the evidence continues to mount. The frequency of unexplained phenomena increases worldwide. Geometric light formations appearing above ancient sites, electromagnetic anomalies that defy conventional physics, collective dreams reported simultaneously across disparate cultures. The suppression efforts have grown more desperate but less effective. Information cannot be contained when reality itself is changing. The perception framework is dissolving regardless of attempts to maintain it. Those who have studied the ancient records, who have followed the evidence wherever it led, understand that we stand at the most significant threshold in human history, not an ending, but a remembrance. The veil is lifting, and what lies beyond it is not alien but intimately familiar, the truth of what we have always been. The final Sumerian passage, long mistranslated, now reveals its actual meaning. When the stars align as written, when the gateway between worlds opens, the children of the Anunnaki will remember their inheritance. Heaven and earth shall be one again, and those who were divided shall recognize their wholeness. This isn't prophecy, it's activation code, instructions embedded in our collective consciousness, triggered by celestial alignments and awakening genetic memories. The signs are everywhere for those with eyes to see. the ancient sites activating in sequence, the children born with inexplicable awareness and abilities, the quantum discoveries revealing consciousness as fundamental to reality rather than emergent from it. We are remembering who we are. But the most profound question remains. If humanity is awakening to its true nature, if we are transcending the perception framework designed to limit our awareness, what will we become when those limitations dissolve completely? Will we recognize ourselves on the other side of this transformation? And if the Anunnaki return, whether as physical beings from Nibiru or as awakened aspects of our own consciousness, will they find that we have fulfilled their design or transcended it? The gateway stands open. The choice to step through it is yours. Will you remember?